All right, here we go. We have Speech, the lead rapper of the legendary group Arrested Development, in the building.
Yeah.
Hey, man, honor to have you.
Honored to be with you.
Big, longtime fan.
Thank you, man. That means the world to me. It really does. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, like we were talking before the cameras rolled, I was a freshman at UC Berkeley when that first album dropped, and it was like just such a huge album on campus. Like everyone I knew were bumping it.
Wow. I love that. I love hearing those stories. I totally get it. I mean, it was a ridiculous time. You know what I mean? Back in the early 90s, just period. Not just for AD, but just period.
Yeah, and it was just such a very interesting album because at the time, conscious hip hop was sort of in the forefront, but it was kind of dominated by groups like Public Enemy, which was more of like on the militant side. And you guys came out, positive, Afrocentric, but not militant at all.
Well, it's funny to me, like a few things. I feel like back in those days, there was a balance. You had Arrested Development, Public Enemy, X-Clan, Paris, Poor Righteous Teachers, but you also had Hammer and Young MC and LL and Run DMC and, 2 Live Crew and so a lot of us even used to tour together. So there was this balance that to me, it was a diversity of voices was very mirror to the real community of America. You know what I mean? And especially the Black community. And then as far as the militants, I feel like our lyrics have more militants than we get credit for. And I'm not saying like, yeah, we want to have militants, but I just honestly do feel like that. I feel like, however, it was cloaked in this, back to nature, back to the roots, ancestral, spiritual type of energy. So I think people sometimes didn't pick up on it as much as a PE who felt more like Black Panthers, you know what I'm saying? Or straightforward, saying that kind of thing. So I think it was cloaked in something different, I think. And that's why people sometimes miss the militance of but like Revolution, for instance, was straight up, revolution.
All right, so this is your first time here, so I want to get into the whole story. So you were actually born in Milwaukee.
Yeah, born and raised.
Okay, and your mom owns the largest Black newspaper in Wisconsin?
She does, yeah. My mom's name is Patricia Patillo now. It was Patricia Thomas. And she, for 44 years now, has had the largest Black newspaper in Wisconsin. Yeah.
That's the Milwaukee Community Journal.
Milwaukee Community Journal. Yeah. I'm proud of it.
Very dope. Yeah, no, absolutely. So you grew up in this household that was very conscious, very proactive, very community-based.
It was, like my mom and dad used to have breakfast with us, my brother and I, and we would talk about issues in the Black community and we would be like, what's some of the solutions? And my dad would always sort of challenge us for solutions and we talk about it. And that was sort of a thing in our family. That was one of the things that pulled us together. So yeah, that's very true. Plus they were both civil rights leaders in their own right. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay. So do they march and so forth?
Definitely, like march, trying to rally Black businesses together to pool resources in the Black community financially and like all of those kind of things. They was very heavy, like engaged in Black empowerment and stuff like that.
Okay, very, very dope. And your dad actually owned a nightclub called the Fox Trap.
Yes. You've done your research. Yeah, Fox Trap was a hot place. It was used to be called Rich Man, Poor Man back in the day. And then he changed it to the Fox Trap. Where you trap the foxy ladies. And the bottom line was with disco back then. It was the early days. So it was one of the hottest nightclubs in Milwaukee. And so I grew up around that atmosphere of just dance music, DJs, that whole world of just music was very much a big deal in my young life. Yeah.
All right, and you actually started DJing there.
I did. In fact, I was 13 when I started spinning at the Fox Trap. So obviously I wasn't even supposed to be in there, but my father was the owner, so I was able to get in there. And I was there anyway because after school I'd just hang out there. I wouldn't go home because neither of my parents were home. They were both working. So I would go to the Fox Trap a lot of times and just hang out. And then I started to get to know the DJs. And then they would teach me, because back then there wasn't hip hop DJing, you know what I mean? You used to let the record fade out, then the record fade back in, the next record. And so I learned that. But then when I heard like Grandmaster Flash and them, I started doing more the hip hop thing. But yeah, I started to DJ at 13.
Okay, and then in '84, you formed your first rap group, Attack.
Yes, Attack. Attack was literally my first like collective where I started rhyming, but I also was the DJ. And my name back then was DJ Peach. And I had two other members with me. My man, T.A. Wiz, rest in peace. And my man, Special K, who's now known as DJ Kemet. And yeah, so us three were Attack. First rap group out of Milwaukee, actually, to release a major record. So, yeah.
Oh, the first rap group out of Milwaukee. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm glad that DJ Peach didn't stick around.
I knew it was gonna be problematic. Yeah.
It didn't age too well.
No.
Speech worked out a lot better.
Yeah, I put an S in front of the Peach because it was DJ Peach. I put an S in front of it when I started rhyming, and it really was the best move.
Okay, from Peach to Speech.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it now.
Yeah.
I get it. Okay, so then in 1987, you moved to Georgia and you went to the Art Institute in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you're going to college because I guess the hip hop thing didn't really work out at that point?
It did, but no one had made it out of Milwaukee. So we were popular in Milwaukee, but no hip hop group had made it out of Milwaukee. And Milwaukee was also getting a lot more violent, gang violence, gun violence. And so I felt like I wasn't gonna do well if I stayed there. And so I needed to get out, get to Atlanta, and went to the Art Institute because I was horrible at school and no other school would accept me. That was the one school that was willing to accept me. And I even had to write basically a plea letter for them to let me in. So yeah, I went to the Art Institute.
Okay, so you go to Atlanta, and then I guess a year later, that's when you hook up with Headliner?
No, it was actually that same week. It's ironic because when I came to Atlanta, I knew I wanted to start a hip hop crew. And so I put a flyer up saying, hey, I'm a rhymer, I'm looking to start a group, and I need a DJ. And, he was looking at the flyer in the hallway. He used to go to Art Institute, I did too. And his name was Tim Barnwell, it still is. And we just met and started connecting and vibing and became best friends. And then he was the first member in the group. And then we started doing stuff locally and, it went from there. More and more members started coming in and it just started growing.
Okay, and that's when Arrested Development formed?
Yeah, I mean, Arrested Development basically, like when I first started the group, it was called, I want to say DLR, which stood for Disciples of a Lyrical Rebellion. Then it changed to Secret Society. Then it changed to Arrested Development. Like, as most groups, I guess, we just trying to find ourselves, you know what I mean?
I mean, DLR is such a late 80s rap acronym, like lyrical dimensions. I'm like, I remember that was definitely the thing back then.
Yeah, exactly.
Once again, a name that didn't age too well over time.
No, not at all. Just like I think a lot of the little this and the little that's not gonna fare so well like in the next 10, 20 years.
Right. And I mean, were you guys really kind of focused on making things different? Because gangster rap was really doing its thing during that time.
Yeah.
And you guys were kind of the opposite of that.
Yeah. Well, on purpose. Like, we like gangster rap. Like, we listened to it, you know what I mean? And we were fans of it to some extent. But for me personally, I'm a kind of dude that looks at where are Black people at as a whole and what do we need to sort of help make us full humans in a sense, from a perception standpoint to ourselves and outside of ourselves. And I felt like just the gangster rap thing wasn't showing who we really were to the fullness. And so I felt like Arrested Development's music was a great chance to put more flesh on the bones of who Black people are, what our issues are, the things that we're concerned about, so on and so forth. And at that time period, in the late 80s, early 90s, authenticity and originality was celebrated. So it was something that was looked at as good and even could help your career move forward if you were more original than it is now, for instance, where it seems like it's almost punished if you're too different from everybody else. You're sort of like, okay, what's that? And I always hated that term alternative rap, which we sort of got pinned with. but I never considered us alternative rap. Never. Yeah.
Right. And arrested development means like that the development has stopped.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was just because we saw the development of our people having stopped from slavery and the things, just the atrocities that have happened to us as a whole, not just in the United States, but in the Caribbean, South America, Africa, so on and so forth. So, yeah.
Okay. So you put together this crew of Arrested Development. And how many people, by the time you guys signed, how many people were in the group?
Well, that's funny because by the time we signed, it was 6 of us. It was me, Baba OJ, Airly Tari, Headliner, Razadon, and Ishi, Moncho Ishi. But before we got signed, and I mean like probably a month before we got signed, it was about, I'd say 10 or 11 members. And then before that, it's about 20 members because we were similar to Soul to Soul. So like when we would do shows, I told you, me and Headliner would go around doing shows. We would invite people on stage. They would rock cowbells. They would do African dance, painting, like different African painting live on stage. So it was more of a sound system energy of just music with expression. So when the label got into it, of course, we couldn't tour with 20 people. You know what I mean? So it was like, well, who's going to be the nuts and bolts? And it turned out to be the 6 that I just mentioned, basically because some of them I felt was great for imagery and the vibe of the group. And I thought it could help us to propel the group further. And others were just people that just, to be honest, was in the right place at the right time.